Good evening, friends. Night 15 in the Elul Screen Challenge, reading passages from the book Inner Work. Page 25. The benefits of spiritual practice are most certainly for us to experience within our lifetime. All the states of consciousness that are discussed are to be attained within our lives. The benefits of spiritual practice are most certainly for us to experience within our lifetime. All the states of consciousness that are discussed are to be attained within our lives. So this is speaking to any kind of religious theology that says that our spiritual practice is for the benefit of the afterlife, for the world to come after we're no longer in these bodies, after we die. And this is saying that the benefits of our spiritual practice are most certainly to be experienced within our lifetime. All the different states that are discussed throughout the Kabbalah, these are discussed to be attained within our lives. I was privileged to learn from the Rebbe, Zichron Livracha, of blessed memory, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, for 14 years, and that entire time I never heard him speak about the afterlife. This is because we need to be concerned with attaining all our spiritual rectifications while in this world. So again, another passage similar to the previous, discussing that our work is not about doing it for the afterlife, it's about doing it for while we're in this world, right? He never heard the Rebbe speak about the afterlife. In all the 14 years he studied with him. And this is because we all need to be concerned with attaining our spiritual rectifications, our tikkunim, while in this world, not to be concerned with the afterlife. Religion is not for the benefit of society, but rather to benefit the individual who is engaged in the spiritual work. Religion is not for the benefit of society, but rather to benefit the individual who is engaged in the spiritual work, right? So another religious or a philosophical concept that religion should be for the benefit of society, that our religious practices or spiritual work should just be for the benefit of society. But the Rebbe is saying that it's not for the benefit of society, but rather it's for the benefit of the individual who is engaged in the spiritual work. Now, does it have an impact and a benefit on the society at large? Of course. But that's not the point. The point is not for the benefit of society, but rather for the individual who is engaged in the work. Our desire to receive is our essence and will never be nullified. Our desire to receive itself needs to emulate God's giving. We are striving to reach the state in which our desire to receive is not used for self-service, rather only for divine service. So he's clarifying that our desire to receive is our essence. It's who we are in our essence, right? Like I said, it's coded into our DNA. And it will never be nullified. We can't nullify it because it is in essence who we are as creation. But our desire to receive itself, it needs to emulate God's giving. It can emulate God's giving. We need to transform it so that it emulates God's giving. What does that mean? that we're striving to reach the state in which our desire to receive is not used for self-service, rather only for divine service. So what does it mean to emulate God's giving, our desire to receive, to emulate God's giving? It means that we're striving to reach a state in which our desire to receive is no longer used for self-service. It's no longer used to fulfill our self-serving desires. Rather, we use our desire to receive for divine service. Now, I had said this earlier in the teachings that there are 4 levels of giving and receiving. The first is receiving in order to receive. The second is giving in order to receive. The third, which we talk about most so far, is giving in order to give, to become a giver. But actually the final stage and the highest stage, according to this work, is receiving in order to give. And what does that really mean? It means that the purpose of creation is for us to receive all of God's light and all of God's glory through union with the divine oneness, with the source of all existence. And we do that, so because that is our purpose, that's why God created human beings, that's what we were designed for. So we're designed to receive. We're actually designed to receive. But what does it mean to receive in order to give? It means that we receive because it is why God created us. So we're receiving in order to give to God. Meaning to give. Giving to God means to fulfill God's will in the creation. So God's will in creation is for us to receive all of God's light. So receiving in order to give, or transforming our desire to receive into a divine service, means that we receive God's light in union with the divine because it is God's will, because it is why God created us. And we receive it not for us, not as a self-serving experience, which is pretty hard to understand considering it's the greatest pleasure, the pleasure beyond measure, receiving God's light and that union with Spirit. But that is the goal, that is the highest state in this giving-receiving combination framework. Final passage. Even in the spiritual state of giving for the sake of giving, the desire to receive within ourselves is certainly felt. The desire to receive always exists within us, although we can want to not use it in a self-serving way. Okay, so similar to the above. Even in the spiritual state of giving for the sake of giving, the third level that we just talked about, giving for the sake of giving, the desire to receive within ourselves is still certainly felt. It's still there, right? Because it's our essence. We can't get rid of it. The desire to receive always exists within us, although we can acknowledge it and we can then desire not to use it in a self-serving way. We can desire to use it in a way that is in service, that is in divine service, as we talked about in the passage above. We desire to receive in order to give. Okay, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll be happy to discuss anything that's on anyone's mind. Otherwise, have a wonderful night. and a wonderful week ahead.